paradox. All right, guys, it's Jahlon, and today we're going to take a question from a viewer. I originally did this as a segment on my Twitch show. I wasn't really happy with how that turned out with the editing and post-production, so I'm going to redo it. I'm going to redo it today as a YouTube segment, give the viewer a little bit neater and cleaner of an answer. So what we have here, can you talk a bit or make a short video about how to select a guild as a player? There's a bunch of guilds recruiting on the forums. Some of them are massive, and it feels like not joining these giant guilds puts people at a great disadvantage. Also, do you recommend playing on a server that doesn't have massive guilds? I'd like to hear your thoughts on this and overall guild dynamics for players. Guilds were very dominant in Arc Age and forced players into certain decisions. All right, so what we have here is we really have three specific questions going on. We have how to select a guild as a player. We have not joining those giant guilds puts people at a great disadvantage. And we have, do you recommend playing on a server that doesn't have massive guilds? So the first one I'm going to say is how to select a guild. Do not wait until launch to find your guild. Go guild shopping now. You can find guilds that are recruiting on the official Discord and on the official forums. Many of these guilds are already playing games together. My recommendation is to read over the advertisements, find a guild that you like that is playing a game that you currently play, and then start playing with them now so you can make sure it's a good fit. Are they comfortable with you? But more importantly, are you going to be comfortable with them? Launch of Ashes is already going to be sort of crazy, so you don't want to try to be joining a guild on launch day. You want to be an already established member of a guild. Now, the next part about not joining a guild that's really big puts you at a disadvantage. Sure, numbers are going to be important. The big thing here is that organization and leadership is going to be more important. Just because a guild is massive doesn't mean they're good. Keep in mind, Ashes has some very specific anti-Zerg mechanics built into it. When it comes to castle sieges, it's a fixed 250 versus 250, and hopefully they can hit their goal of 500 versus 500. This means if your giant organization is nothing more than Zerglings, when the time comes, you won't be able to fight with equal numbers. Second, Ashes is being built around the idea that the world size should matter. Ashes is designed to have very limited fast travel. In fact, the family summon that they discussed that they want to put into the game has not been responded to very well, and pretty much everybody wants it to be much more stringent. The majority of the player base wants to keep the world size meaningful. This means even if your guild has a lot of people in it, they can only fight with the available people when the fight starts off. Sure, they may have more reinforcements coming, but time will always be a factor. So, is joining a smaller guild going to put you at a disadvantage? Not necessarily. Is being in a 30-person guild going to be a bad thing? No, not necessarily. Is being in a 30-person guild going to limit some of the activities that you partake in? Yes, absolutely. The big thing here is if you're in a 30-person guild, you're probably not going to be doing castle sieges. The size of your guild will have some impact on the content you do. But remember, this is going to work both ways. If you are in a giant guild and you're always doing the giant guild content, then your play time will dictate that you don't always have time to do that small group, small number, nuanced stuff. This is really going to boil down to player choice and what sort of activities you want to engage in. Now, on the idea of playing on a server without giant guilds, the only thing I can ask is, how are you going to know? You won't know every single guild that rolls on your server on launch day. The world is big. We know that the spawn points are spread out all around the world, and you won't be able to track every single person that comes onto your server. And keep in mind that there are going to be larger organizations on the far side of the map. Now, for Giant Guild, I do want to say any organization that is more than 1,200 players, so more than one full mechanical alliance on your server. Yes, guilds have been dominant in a lot of games. The problem is a lot of those games have very poor design, which allowed a single guild to control everything. ArcAge is absolutely an example of this. ArcAge didn't do a good job of keeping the faction-based game faction-based. Due to the fact that guilds could dominion other guilds, members of a faction could bloodlust on their own faction. It wasn't really a faction game. It wasn't really a guild game. So XL Games wasn't really sure what they wanted the game to be, and then it all sort of fell apart. So should you avoid all the giant guilds? No. Honestly, what I'm going to tell you is this. If you're afraid of giant guilds, you should get better, and you should just beat the giant guilds. And that's it, guys. I did this on my Twitch show. I wasn't happy with the way it was showing up in post-production, so I decided to just recut it, do it a little bit differently, and that's it. If you guys ever have a question and I like the question and you want a video on it, I'm more than happy to jump on that. I'm going to put this in a post-production. I have streams to do. I will see you next time, and if you have your own question, leave it in the comments below. So what we have here is an end screen. I'd like to say a big thank you to all those names scrolling up the right-hand side of the screen. Those are my sponsors over at Patreon. Wouldn't be able to pay the bills without them. For the rest of you, there's videos. Follow the channel, like, subscribe, do all those social media things.